Okay, so I'm going to make a very big statement here. I'd love to know if you agree with this. Elon's projection, his projection yesterday of a 30 trillion market cap for Tesla in the next 5 years has to be by far the most outlandish prediction for a company, bar none, except maybe for his earlier prediction about Tesla, like, for instance, that he'd sell 500,000 cars in 2020, or his prediction that he would increase sales at a 50% per year annual rate after 2020, which he did until just now. Those predictions came true, and they were outlandish at the time. So this is another prediction. This is not something he hasn't thought through. This isn't something that he's just throwing out there like, oh, this is my, maybe this, no, this is something that he believes is doable. And he gave us the details of how to get there. So when I say outlandish, I only mean outlandish from the standpoint of how other people might look at it. So quite frankly, as I look at the headlines over the last couple of days, the crazy part is that, these are being reported as something that might be possible. They're not being scoffed at. They're not being derided, which is kind of wild. But then the stock not reacting at all. Now I'll talk in a minute about why I think the stock isn't trading up right now. In fact, I said I thought it would trade sideways if the approval came through, and I'll give some reasons for that in a minute. But I did say that, by the way. Also, something else that I've been saying for a very, very long time. So just listen to this, see if you think I'm right here. Just let me know in the comments, because you guys, most of you, I think that once in a while I get stuff right. But there's a few of you who are always saying, oh, Randy, quit predicting things. Well, pertinent to these crazy back of the napkin projections by Elon, Warren Redlick and I were kind of famous a year or so ago for coming up with all kinds of crazy estimates of what Tesla would be able to do in the future with full self-driving, with the the superchargers, with automobiles, total dollars in automobiles, with Optimus, etc. He calls it his back of the napkin math. I did mine with spreadsheets, but he and I were not that far apart lots of times. We even did a few shows together where we compared our crazy numbers. But most folks are just like, what are you guys even talking about? Except, guess what? These are now the numbers that Cern Basher agrees with. These are the numbers that Cathie Wood agrees with. And now they're the numbers that Elon Musk agrees with. So maybe Warren Redlick and I should get a bit of credit for kind of being way out there and crazy a year ago. Anyway, speaking of Cern Basher thinks that Elon is sandbagging on the $25 trillion valuation for Optimus bots. And guess what? I kind of agree with all of his points. So let's see what he says. We'll have him on, of course, next week, and maybe he and I'll talk about this a bit. Anyway, he explains, I agree that the bot industry will eventually build 1 billion bots. Even if China builds half of them, and if Tesla is excluded from selling any of their bots at all in China, maybe, that means that Tesla only has to get a 20% market share of the remaining 500 million. And that seems too low, actually, because they're going to be able to just outproduce everybody. B, yes, Tesla could sell a bot for 20 grand. But if we assume that Tesla doesn't earn any additional revenue, Elon didn't mention any, that each bot is only costing $2.85 per hour, assuming 7,000 hours of useful work in 1 year, or 3,500 hours of work over 2 years. Selling bots for such a low price makes no sense when their value is so much higher. Why leave so much money on the table? C, if in fact Tesla did sell their bots for such a low price, then others, individuals and bot fleet companies and middlemen and people that are just going to take advantage, they're going to just jump in and buy as many bots as they can and then offer them out at higher rates. While I personally be very happy to have such a business opportunity to be able to buy bots and rent them out or sell them at a higher price, and it'll be a nice way for people to earn a living, it wouldn't make financial sense for Tesla to allow this. So as I mentioned, this is Randy now, as I mentioned this morning, there's a possibility if they sell them for 20,000, there still might be some, $100 a month or something $200 a month, or maybe some amount per day, or I don't know, so it could be some other charges. D, it makes so much sense for Tesla to offer robots as a service. This allows Tesla to properly price the bot at the market labor rates. And then he goes into some details on that. E, at this point, there are 10 million, at the point where there are 10 million bots deployed, not per year, but deployed. If Tesla only has a 10% market share, then that's 1 billion bots that have been deployed by Tesla. If each bot earns $285 an hour, 7,000 hours, then that would give you your 10 trillion in profits. F, 10 trillion times the PE of 25, 250 trillion, are 10 times higher than what Elon stated. And then he says, hey, Elon Musk, am I wrong? He says, no, I didn't say that Elon is wrong. After all, 25 trillion is a milestone on the way to 250 trillion, but I am questioning the idea of selling bots versus offering them as a service. So then, now we get to my question of why did the stock go sideways over this week? It was up $1.32, or if you count the after hours, it's up $1 over the entire week. And, you know, I, again, said that I thought that the stock would go down if they got a no vote, but I thought it would go sideways if they got a yes vote. Well, why do you think that is? What happens next is the reason why it didn't get a bump, because they're not done. This is just like step one, basically. I mean, it was a hard step and it was a great result and everybody should be excited and happy, but it's just step one. Because even if Judge McCormick finds that the new vote meets all of her criteria regarding process, she can say, oh yeah, okay, great. You fully disclosed, you know, you did a compensation research analysis, you know, all the things that she was complaining about. She could also still come to the conclusion that the board is not, the board or the compensation committee were not independent. She said, well, thank you for all the stuff that you did, but I come to the conclusion that they weren't independent. And B, she can still say that the amount is far too large because she obviously thinks that, okay? But the fact that the board and all the stockholders come around, 77% come out and say, no, we think it's fair and we want to give it to them, she can still say, sorry, I don't care. So that's what the stock market thinks. So the overhang continues. Number two, if she finds that there is still an issue with board independence, that can be moved forward on appeal, and or Tesla could move the entire thing to Texas. Just say, all right, Delaware, whatever, we'll move this to Texas, and they'd have to have, maybe, I guess, another vote. I'm not sure, I think. Then number three, if she just continues to claim that the amount is too large, then it would seem that at this point, after the revote, she would have a bigger burden, a very great burden to state what is reasonable or provide some kind of method for coming up with a different number. I don't think she would just refuse to change her ruling at this point. Or if she did, I think that would fail miserably at the Supreme Court of Delaware and or eventually at the Supreme Court of the United States. Again, it blows my mind that she can say in the first ruling, this amount is not fair, and not offer any other solution other than completely throwing out the entire package. She should have, in my opinion, my humble opinion, she should have said, here's what I want you to do to come to a conclusion about what would be fair, or she should have said, this is a number that I think is fair. One of the two. She should have done one of those, and she didn't do either one. All right, number four, of course, any result other than reinstatement can be appealed. Again, all the ways we talked about. And she may also be under some pressure from the bar in Delaware not to kill the golden goose. Companies are moving out of Delaware like crazy. There is a huge, corporate bar that sits in Delaware. That's how the state of Delaware makes their money, is with all these corporations. And then they got all these corporate lawyers there that are basically only dealing with these companies that exist there only in a closet. So the corporate bar can be saying, hey, these companies are leaving like crazy. You're going to cut into our income, and there could be some pressure on Judge McCormick in that regard. There are no legal efforts to claim that the vote to move the company has issues, But Tesla has done the smart thing. I said there's no legal efforts. No, there are also, I must have mistyped. There are also some legal efforts to claim that the vote to move the company has issues as well. But Tesla has done the smart thing by immediately moving the company. They're already reincorporated in Texas. So the burden of any future plaintiff is going to have to be to prove, it's going to put the burden on them to prove that there was something wrong with this vote. All right, this is Randy Kirk, by the way. Please like, subscribe, and hit notify. Tomorrow morning, Larry Goldberg and I are going to have an amazing hour together because do we have anything to talk about? Holy mackerel. I'm sure you'll want to hear what Larry has to say on many of these same issues, but we will try to also bring up some new stuff that Larry's got that he's passionate about. So tomorrow morning, I'm going to say 7:30, 8:30, right around 9 o'clock, 9:15 California time, it should be up. All right. And then, of course, please note, if you haven't already seen me say this, you can now buy these with your own print on there. They can be customized, whatever you want to do to them. You can put your own wrap, so to speak. You can put your company name. You can put your team name. You can put your children's name. You can do whatever you want. Got to buy 6. Buy 6 or more. You can put whatever you want on there. And that would be $30 a piece. Plus, I think it's $30 a setup charge. If you buy 12 or more, $25 a piece, no setup charge. Okay. Color, anything. You can do whatever you want. All right. Oh, Patreon. All right. Some feel, this is on the general economy now, that the consumer sentiment results today were the reason for the softness in the market. The Michigan survey folks, the people that wrote the kind of the paragraph of information about the numbers that came out, they said, oh yeah, about the same as last month. They weren't. It was really the most bizarre thing because it was a dramatic drop in consumer confidence. Anyway, and it's also a continuation of the trend that we've seen elsewhere in consumer confidence coming down and also small business confidence. So the people that we're talked to, they're very concerned about inflation, and I think they should be. Here's why. As noted this morning, oil, gas, natural gas, all 3 directionally not good. All 3 up 15, 16% this year. Okay. Yeah, you compare them to 12 months ago, they're okay. But if you compare them to the beginning of the year, they're up 15, 16%. And I don't think they're going to be going down. Any of them. Natural gas could back off a little, but I don't think it's going to back off much as we're going into air conditioning season. I don't think oil's going to back off. I read a bunch of articles on that. I think oil is going to be, under some pressure to go up, not down. And then there's gasoline, which is usually at least somewhat related to oil. Anyway, all 3 of those impact everything. Yes, they're not in the core inflation numbers, but they impact everything else. Next subject. I don't know if you listened to the Trump interview with Impulsive. If you didn't, you should. No matter how you feel politically, you should listen to that interview. I think it's very instructive and useful. It will give you probably the best look you're ever going to get at the way Trump thinks. Give you an idea of who he is as a person. Anyway, great interview. I highly recommend it. But in the interview, he said that he talks to Elon all the time, agreeing with Elon, who said the same thing yesterday. And apparently he's listening to Elon because he gave chapter and verse on the upcoming electricity shortage and all the issues, not all the issues, some of the issues surrounding AI. So whatever you're thinking about Trump in general, maybe you're kind of on the fence, maybe you think one way or the other, whatever you think about him, one thing I like would be that it sounds like he'll be listening to Elon Musk, who I think has got the right answers on all kinds of things with regard to the future of the country, not least of which, free speech, but, AI, renewables, electricity, the ability to electrify the world. I think he's on the right track on all of those things. And so therefore, I would much rather have the president of the United States like Elon and listen to Elon. The Federal Reserve's path on rate cuts could be what's end up causing a U.S. recession, according to Mohammed El-Erian. I'm sure you've heard Mohammed from time to time on CNBC and elsewhere. He says that he's been flagging the risk of a U.S. recession. I've quoted him many times over the last 12 months when I've said, yeah, he's calling for a recession. I said, there's not going to be one. All right. Now, since the beginning of this year, I've been saying there's been a chance. Right now, I'm sitting at about 30% chance. So anyway, he says the risk of a U.S. Fed officials said they needed more confidence that inflation was on track in order to fall back to its 2% target before they could loosen monetary policy. Officials also dialed back their projection for rate cuts by the end of the year. Median central bank estimates now calling for just one 25 basis cut this year. I'm saying none, but one's possible. Central bankers suggested that their most likely move would be to issue one rate cut. Elon said that in an interview with Yahoo Finance on Thursday, a rate cut by the end of the year will be too late. He warned, given that the economy also faces an elevated risk of recession. In my opinion, too late is what was reflected in yesterday's SEP or dot plot. He said, referring to the Fed's summary of economic projections. By that time, the lagged effects of what was a significant increase in rates would be hitting even more. He says U.S. consumers are already grappling with the highest cost of living, and the pile of excess cash that cushions small businesses and those consumers is spent, with pandemic savings estimated to have run out by March, according to the San Francisco Fed. So the savings have run out. I think cash balances, and checking may not have. Bank of America's been saying by the end of summer, they'll run out of everything. They'll be completely, all that money will be gone. Household debt levels have been climbing to an all-time record high of 17.6 trillion, while a growing number of auto and credit card loans have transitioned into late payment status. The Fed said that was true the other day, but he said it was not yet a problem. It was problematic, but not a problem. He says, he goes on to say, I worry if they carry on with what is in the current SEP, that'll be too late. He noted the Fed may choose to further loosen monetary policy when factoring in a soft May inflation data. Consumers and producer prices rose less than expected. I'm sure the PCE at the end of the month will also be pretty good. Though the Fed has signaled just one cut, investors still see 2 to 3 by the end of the year, according to the CME FedWatch tool. Meanwhile, Fed Chair Powell appeared to acknowledge the risks of keeping rates too high for too long. Elevated interest rates could cut into economic activity and employment, Powell said at a press conference on Wednesday. At this point, the economy faces an even bigger risk of recession than rampant inflation, Elon suggested. Here's the biggie. I think what he misses is the balance of that risk, that the balance, unfortunately, is in favor of them being too late and the economy slowing more than it should, and small businesses and low-income households being hit particularly hard, he added, pegging 35% chance that the economy would enter a slowdown. Well, for once, he and I agree on something. I very rarely agree with him. So maybe now I have to figure out, maybe I've been wrong in my number. Maybe the risk is higher than I thought. Anyway, the recession outlook remains mixed, with the cocktail of tight financial conditions, resilient economic growth so far. According to New York Fed economists, the U.S. has a 52% chance of slipping into recession by May of next year. All right. Well, anyway, that's all interesting. Let's take a look at what the markets did today, and also where Tesla ended up in the after hours. So the Dow down 57.94, the NASDAQ up 21.32, S&P down 2.14, Tesla down $4.46. The Magnificent Seven, very mixed, with NVIDIA, Microsoft, Meta, and Google up, Tesla, Apple, and Amazon down. Cathie Wood's almost all down, a couple of them up, but most of them down. So kind of a downer day. Tesla down again, coming back to where it started at the beginning of the week. We'll look at the after hours number. It is down another 17 cents. So that's a little better than it was just a little while ago. Barron's is predicting that Tesla stock will ride higher on Musk's pay raise. But I think, as I just pointed out, I think they're going to have to hear from the Chancellery Court before they believe that. Now, will Tesla start to raise higher because of 8.8? I believe yes, especially if we begin to see some real consumer average folks out there getting 12.4.1. and then reporting on good results out in the field. We'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks on that. Let me look at the rest of the information. Again, we have got, just a second, we have the bonds today. Bonds down 1.9 basis points, sitting at 4.221. Wow, heading towards 4.20. That's quite amazing. We've got the 2-year up, actually 1.9 in the pre-market, and the 2-month up just 1.1%. I'm sorry, 10.1%, 0.1 of a basis point. There you go. We have got the, but now when you take all that into consideration, you've got the 10-year at 4.22 and the 2-year at 4.707, so about 47 basis points. That's high. That's very high. And the 2-month still well over 100 and almost 20 basis points. So yeah, the inversion is moving back towards the worst point that it has been recently. Okay. When I say recently, I mean within the last 6 months, 8 months. Okay, let's go on to oil, down 13 cents, 78.49. Brent unchanged at 82.62. So they are now toward the upper end of the recent numbers. You know, you don't worry about them too much until they're hitting up towards 90. Natural gas down 2.47%. So I just said natural gas wouldn't go down. I think natural gas will not go down over time. So $2.89, which is under 3. So it's been over 3 recently. Now it's finally down under 3. We've got gold up $30 to 23.48, right in the middle of its recent range. We've got silver up 1.91 at 29.62, again, bouncing against 30, which has been kind of its high watermark. Copper up 0.38%. At $4.50. Remember, it was over $5 recently. We've got euro having the worst week in 2 months, meaning the dollar is up compared to the euro. That's all I can tell you for now. We've got Bitcoin down 672. So Bitcoin's still under pressure, sitting only at $66,002. Actually, 65,996. It just switched. And of course, no pre-market on the equities until Sunday night. So don't forget to watch Sunday night. But really, what you want to do is you want to go back and you want to revisit my video from earlier today with Brian White. That was a really fun one where we talked about some of the unusual things you can do to your car, some modifications you can make on your car that he's been learning about as he's been going around the country. Now, tomorrow they've got that big show in Muskegon, so we should be getting some reporting from Muskegon in terms of what's being said, because they've got a raft of amazing talent up there that it's going to be on some panels and whatnot. So I'll be looking forward to maybe even talking to Brian tomorrow, or certainly on Sunday, to see how all that went. All right. Yeah, that's all I got. Remember, if you want to think about doing this, listen, if you need to just email me and have a conversation, that's fine too. We can talk about it. That's all I got for you right now. It's been great talking to you.